We're going to get started. Respect everybody's time. This is going for 1 hour until noon. And today we're going to talk about the importance of social proof reviews, my experience in my business with reviews, and just overall how to make it work, how to incorporate them into your business, because a lot of people get stuck. So my co-host here, John Gualtieri, who's been my business coach since 2008. He's also my partner at eXp Realty. And once a month, we have this mastermind for his coaching clients. He's got a very strong group of coaching clients throughout the country who are all very, very successful agents. So we do this, and then we invite others to participate as well. So anybody who's not in John's group, welcome. Hopefully you'll get some value today. So today we're going to talk about specifically Google reviews, because we'll give you a background. Starting in 2010, I got a call from a Zillow rep, and her name was Elizabeth. And Elizabeth wanted me to pay for Zillow leads. And she told me I needed to get reviews. So what I did is I looked around, and there was an agent at Remax in my marketplace. At the time, I had my own brokerage, and he had 60 reviews. So I figured, you know what? I need to get as many as he does. Well, because Elizabeth told me that without reviews, it doesn't matter, because that's the validity. It's kind of like Consumer Reports. People started using third-party social proof to validate someone. I realized back then there's just as many people that rely on reviews, more so now, especially with AI, ChatGPT, and Claude specifically. But that's an entirely different conversation, which we did about a month ago. But today we're specifically talking about Zillow or Google reviews. I actually have about 567 reviews on Zillow. I stopped acquiring reviews on Zillow because Zillow, now that they're really hot and heavy into the Flex program, which is a program where they charge agents referral fees, not just a monthly fee, which is what the Premier Agent program was. My thought process was the find an agent button on Zillow at some point is going to go away. I mean, Zillow owns Dotloop, they own Follow Up Boss, they own Showing Time, and they own the real estate lead space. It's much more dialed in than even Realtor.com's OpCity program, and they get a 30 to 40% referral fee. Why should you care about any of this? Because if you're leaning into Zillow for your reviews, what happens one day when they take the find an agent button away, and then it's gone and your reviews are gone and nobody can see you on there anymore? And the reason that they would do that is because I'm surprised they haven't done it so far. Because if they're relying on referral fees from agents, why would they give a consumer a direct connect to a realtor? It doesn't make any sense to me. As of today, the find an agent button's on there, but I've anticipated for a couple of years now that it's going to be gone. And if it's gone, don't be caught with your pants down. Google has no interest in getting in the real estate sales business. They have House Canary, which is like an IDX link of some sort. I really don't know much about it, but they're not interested in getting in our space. And Google is still the number one, other than YouTube, it's the number one searched website because it's all search based. So having said that, having a Google profile is very important. There's a couple of ways you can do it. You can have a free Google profile, which you should do immediately, or there's Google local service ads, which we're going to talk about later on today. But before we get into all of this, I'm going to hand it over to John, and he's going to go over a couple of points, and then we're going to get more into the weeds on all of this. All right, go ahead, John.
So guys, I was thinking earlier this morning, I had to get a new laptop, and I always have my IT guy spec out a computers over the years, but I needed a case for it. You know what I mean? A protective case. So I went on to Amazon, and the first thing that I did was tell Amazon I want to see the computer, the laptop cases based on reviews, right? I wanted nothing but 5-star reviews, and that's how I purchased it. Right, based on the reviews. And what has happened in our culture now is when people are going to make a purchase of a product or a service, especially if they're going to spend significant amount of money on it, they look at reviews. And at the end of the day, if we don't have this area dialed down, what ends up happening, of course, is we lose business and we can't measure it. So let's say I refer a piece of business to Ed, right? But I don't tell Ed. Right. And so the person to whom I referred Ed, the agent I referred to Ed, I'm sorry, I don't tell Ed, and the buyer or the seller, they go online to vet Ed and they find that Ed doesn't have reviews, they're probably not going to call him. So we can't even measure sometimes when we lose business, but it's generational. Think about this. If we lose a piece of business in this area, we not only lose the referrals that come from the business, we lose the business itself, and we lose the generational referrals. So, in this example, Ed loses that client. He loses all the referrals that that client might have sent him, and then he loses the referrals that those people might have sent him, and so on. So the cumulative effect is pretty devastating here. And guys, it's not so hard to get this dialed in. I mean, Will has got to be, if not the most five-star reviewed agent in Ohio, pretty close. I mean, I can.
No, there's agents now that have over 1,000 reviews on Google, but they're usually large teams.
There's very few agents that
Yeah,
come.
we've got about 1,000 total, which is helpful.
Yeah. But you notice how Will always is jumping in and correcting me. He can't help it. He's just got to put me on the spot all the time. But
It's because I pay you every month.
But in all seriousness, okay, social proof for products and services is now the most persuasive medium on the planet cross culturally, and it's become massively important. And there's no such thing as too many five-star reviews, right? And the mystery of the mind for me is, despite how important this is and despite how much business this would bring in, agents largely ignore this wheelhouse, largely. And it's mind-boggling. And here's what I will say, and then I'll hand the mic back to Will. It's not as difficult as you might think it is to bring these five-star reviews in. I have a client in North Carolina who brought in over 100 reviews in 1 year. So if you make a commitment to this, and it will make you money, and Will tell you that you will do more business because of it. So Will's going to talk about 8 ways that you can make money with social proof, and I'm going to hand the mic back to him.
Right. So the 8 ways to make money from social proof. Number 1, obviously more business is going to occur organically. You cannot put enough weight behind the importance of having reviews on Google. Now, a lot of people, the biggest struggle is you go on Google in your marketplace and you put homes for sale near me or what have you, and you'll see these agents come up, and then you start thinking to yourself, man, he's got or she's got 416 reviews. I'll never be able to do that. In a minute, we're going to talk about how you can leverage. It doesn't matter how many reviews you have. You can use them as case studies to show clients when they talk to you. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Number 2, even people who are referred will vet you out based on the quantity of 5-star reviews. So if someone in this day and age, and it's completely age independent, because if somebody reaches out to you, my dad's 84, he only texts me. It's annoying. He only texts me. He hardly ever answers his phone, but he'll text me, and he's 84. We have lunch on Fridays. Haven't heard from him all week. And it's not because he's in a home somewhere. It's because he's riding a motorcycle and he's at the gym. But my point is, he's 84 and he uses YouTube and ChatGPT almost every day. So anybody with a lucid brain that is going to be using AI, and they're going to be using Google. I mean, it's just a matter of fact. So even if someone's referred to you, they're going to look on social media and they're going to look on Google to see what they can find about you, to see what your footprint looks like. And you need to be aware of that, right? But number 3, Google and AI both have a strong leaning towards social proof for consumers. And what really started people's dependence on reviews was eBay initially, because on eBay, your trust score was based on reviews. And eBay was very big for a long time, obviously. Then Amazon was around at the same time, but completely took off because their operations are so dialed in that everyone trusts Amazon now. But every product you look at on Amazon, there's going to be reviews. People put videos on there on how they used a product, or whether it worked well or it didn't work well. People really like contributing to reviews. Everything is third-party validated now. There's a thing called Waze, which is like a GPS, and they're interacting with the users all the way down the highway. People are letting the platform know about an accident or a tire in the road. Everybody is dependent now on third-party validation because of the like button, and everything is interactive. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you've got Google reviews and you have a good internet presence and you have some reviews on Facebook, you can get reviews on Facebook as well. Or then you put your reviews on the recommendations on realtor.com. The AI platforms start picking those up because they're looking for proof that you're worth recommending. So all of the stuff that we're talking about today, you need to be focusing on your own brand and how am I going to be recommended on the internet? And what am I doing to contribute to that? Number 4, we have massive leverage when competing for business. So if you have reviews, let's just say you've got 10 reviews. When someone calls you and they say, "Hi, Todd, you were referred by Bob and we're thinking about moving," or they might not even mention who said referred you. Of course, it's best to ask, but the person says, "Todd, we're looking about moving. We'd like to buy a house," what have you. At the end of that meeting, here's what I always do. I send a video text, which is very easy to do. I send a video text saying, "Hey, Bob, great talking to you on the phone. Just wanted to send this quick video text to put a face to a name. Look forward to meeting you Wednesday at 9. By the way, please look at the link below this text. I've sent my Google reviews because I find that it's a lot easier for other people to say how good I am rather than me just pat myself on the back. So please take a minute to read through those reviews." And it doesn't matter if you have 10 or 110 or 1,010. If you've got more than one, and every one of us has the ability of getting 50 reviews on Google. We just have to make it a commitment. And that goes back to everything we talk about. The vast majority of people aren't willing to make a commitment. And back here, what is this one? Ideas mean nothing without execution. If you're going to get reviews, you actually have to make it part of your process, and we're going to talk about that soon. So you can leverage even a handful of reviews every time you get a buyer call, every time you get a seller call, every time you get a request from someone to see a house and they don't know you. Send them a video text, which takes 20 seconds, and it's very easy now to send that. You don't need a recording program. You can do it on a Droid or on an iPhone, and then include the link to your reviews because it's called social proof. It's going to be like other people saying, "Yeah, you should call Will," and it's going to just validate it. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Number 5, it's going to build immediate trust. Once you have reviews, third party, nobody wants to hear you talk about yourself. Okay, so if you've got reviews though, people will read those. They will sit there and they will read those at night. People love reading reviews. We'll talk about before the end. John, remind me how to handle a bad review. Because I had to pull over the side of the road. It was in September of 2013. It was a big incident in my life, and I'll explain how I got over it. Number 6, reduces marketing costs. If you've got reviews on Google, you can actually get organic business just by having the reviews because people go on Google, they'll see you. Not everybody wants a big team, by the way. If you're a solo agent and you've got 36 reviews on Google, as long as you're posting, you can post photos on there, you can post pictures of yourself, places that you go, photos of your clients, houses that you've sold. You can put all of that on your Google profile, and I hope that you actually take the time to do that. So you can actually, I will tell you, Google local service ads, that's another step, but that's a sponsored link. I get about a listing a month on average. So it's very important. In fact, I listed and sold a house last week, and it was a call the week before from Google. Number 7, it can justify charging higher commissions. We're always looking, especially now with all of the exposure around how much are you charging and should we pay a buyer agent and what is your listing fee? If you can increase your value, your perceived value and your status in a relationship with a client by showing them third-party reviews. So keep in mind, a lot of agents go back to the beginning of this conversation when we were saying, well, there's no point in me getting reviews because Leland's got 1,050 reviews on there and I'm never going to be able to get that many. Forget about Google for a minute and think about the platform that they let you use to house your reviews that you can then show individual people that reach out to you. When you get a Google review, get 4 or 5 of them. You make a carousel post on Instagram, or you post them on Facebook. So you can use these reviews without necessarily getting a lot of business from Google, but you can use them to leverage your own business and shorten the path between someone calling you and listing their house. I can't tell you the number of people, because if I say, well, I've sold 3,000 houses and I've been in the business 38 years, all that is pompous. A lot of people don't like you saying that because it's just braggadocious. But if you send them a link to third-party reviews and you say, hey, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to take a look at these, because I really feel uncomfortable bragging about myself, but these are all bona fide reviews. You know, I wish I could pay for them, but I can't. And I can't take bad ones off. So I'd really like if you would take a moment to read some of the reviews before we meet. It carries huge weight. Then you screenshot the reviews, post them on social media. Hopefully you're starting to get the idea here. It's not about who's got the most reviews on Google. It's about who's using their brain to leverage the ones that they have. Number 8, generational referrals. Reviews are evergreen. Once they're on there, they're on there. Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm going to take a minute right now and talk about what happens if you get a bad review, because otherwise I'll forget. Because everyone's scared. Well, what happens if I get a 1-star review? I will tell you, I had about 200 5-star reviews on Zillow, and I got a bad one. And I called Elizabeth Arnold at Zillow, and it was like she was my therapist. I said, Elizabeth, I was pulled over in Kent, Ohio. I pulled into the parking lot of a car dealership. I was on my way to meet someone for lunch, and I got a notification of a review. I opened it up. It was 1 star. The person said, if I could make it 0, I would. He's an arrogant bully, and all he does is push, push, push. I'm like, well, that's a pretty fair assessment. But having said that, it was still a 1-star review, and I felt like sucking my thumb and like laying on the floor in my car. I thought my business was over, and I called Elizabeth, and she said, this is actually a good thing, Will. I'm like, what? What do you mean it's a good thing? They just said if they could do 0, they would. She says, you don't understand. It's the contrast between the 1 bad one and the 200 good ones. When you have 200 good ones and no bad ones, there's a lot of consumers that think, it's fixed. He's taken off his bad ones, or he paid them to remove the bad ones. If you have a bad one, it can actually help your business, because when they see a bad review, they just think, he or she is just a genuine person. And then the key is responding to it properly. The worst thing you can do when you get a bad review, and I know someone, she's got a bunch of reviews and she has some bad ones, and when she gets a bad one, she'll go, okay, let's analyze this for a minute. And then she goes through every parts of the review and counteracts and contradicts everything they say. That is the worst thing you can do, because all you're doing now is doubling down that you really are a jerk, right? The best thing to do, like what I did, I said, thank you very much for taking the time to post this authentic review. I feel terrible, but I'm going to use it to become a better person. I assure you that I will use this information to assess myself and try to do better the next time. And I'm sorry that I failed you. That's what I said. Some version of that. I've had people mention it. Now it's so far back, it's buried. But I got more business by having that response to a 1-star review that they wish they could have made 0. So that's the way to handle it. Once you've got a handful of good reviews, if you get a bad one, if it's a pattern, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. But if it's just one here or there, most of the time you're not going to get a bad one, because most people will say something. But there are those people that keep everything to themselves. That's why so many restaurants go out of business with a giant wooden suggestion box in the front. They're like, but how do we go out of business? We've got a suggestion box. Nobody puts anything in there. That's because nobody cares. And people are much more apt to put a bad one than a good one. All right, here we go. Generational referrals, that's because it's evergreen. I already said this. And once they're on there, you just keep adding to them and people can see them forever. I don't think Google's going anywhere. Now back to you, John.
At the end of the day, I do want to piggyback real world. I had a client, and this client had close to 150 reviews, and he was competing for a listing, and the seller told my client who the other agent was that they would be interested. And my client called me and said, my gosh, this guy's a really good agent. I really want this listing. And the listing was like $2 million and very sellable. Is there any way that I can, get a leg ahead of this guy? And so I looked. My guy had close to 150 reviews. I looked online this other agent had seven reviews, and you know the rest of the story. You have to be very thoughtful about how you don't say this guy only had seven, right? And what I used to say to people, because I used to have a book, this was before things were online with all my reviews, and I would always say, hey, I'm just curious, did the other agent share his or her reviews with you? And they would say no, almost invariably. And then I would say, must have been for a reason. Right. So at the end of the day, you can leverage this stuff massively. Having them and leveraging them are two different conversations. So how to get started. So guys, I'm gonna segue into this by saying the following. And if I sound like I'm being preachy, I'm not. I just really desperately need you all to get this. It starts by making a commitment. And the way that you measure commitment is to fundamentally start scheduling this process into your calendar. If you don't make a commitment, despite your best intentions, it's never going to happen. And I will say this, oftentimes agents will say, I need an accountability partner. I want to be held accountable. And it's nonsense. It's wishy-washy, like, oh, we'll do better next time. Here's the deal. And I've said this to Will, and he thought it was pretty harsh because it is. If somebody makes a commitment and that individual does not keep his or her commitment, it's indicative of a defect in their own character. And so the bottom line is either make a commitment or don't. Because if you're going to approach this area in a kind of wishy-washy, half-hearted manner, why bother? Seriously, why bother? You want to be magnificent in this wheelhouse. I asked somebody on a scale of 1 to 7. I never do 1 to 10 because if people give me a 5, I got nothing. Right? On a scale of 1 to 7, where are you? And they said like a 3, 4. I like, are you okay with that? Are you okay with being a 3, 4? You should be aspiring to a 7. Why? Because it's going to earn you a lot of money to bring home to your families. That's why. Okay, no other reason. So
let me cut you off, John. Third-party validation, who wouldn't in any business, especially as realtors, because we're as a large group, we're not the most loved. I mean, our clients love us individually because those are the ones we've impressed. But as a large group, because there's so many agents in our business, like 70% didn't even sell one house last year. I mean, that's insane. Or it was some huge number that sold like under 2 homes last year. But on what planet, as a professional, would we not want to have a peanut gallery talking about how great we are? The closest thing you can have to a peanut gallery talking about how great you are is Google reviews. That's all I'm going to say on it. So if you don't have reviews or you're not trying to get more reviews, you're basically saying, I got this. I'm going to just talk to people and convince them that I'm the best choice and not have anything to lean on, that I can just shut up and have them watch it. That's what reviews are.
Yes. So, Will, you're absolutely right about that. At the end of the day, I think of this, what did Joe Stumpf used to call it? Aggrandizement marketing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm the greatest. Hire me. I drive a Mercedes. I sell $1 gazillion of real estate. My wife is really hot, but my mistress is hotter. Look, nobody cares, really.
They do care about third-party validation. All right, let's talk about the 4 buckets where you get these reviews.
So think of it this way. You make a commitment, right? And think of it this way, 4 buckets in getting reviews. The first one is the easiest one, and that is now. Business that's on the table now, right? You're working with clients now, and you ask them for a review, and we'll talk about when to ask at that point in time. How hard is that, right? To ask for a review from people with whom you're working. You don't have to implement a system. You just flip and ask, okay? So it's now business, now clients. Then there's clients from last year. Okay, the hot plate is still warm enough where you can circle back and ask people with whom you had done business last year, hey, could you write me a review? Right? That takes a little more work. And what I found with clients is it's a phone call followed by a text.
100% a phone call. It's not a text.
Yeah. But texting, it will be part of the process. You'll see in a second. The third is clients from 2 years back and back from that. You know what I mean? That's a little different process. And then finally, I do believe that getting reviews from our vendors is totally legit. because they're people who know us and know our character. So the now clients, it's a no-brainer, but when to ask. Okay, so this is the gospel according to Zillow. Despite people's best intentions, if you ask for a review at or after settlement, they're crazy moving and everything else, and they'll say yes, but they're not going to follow through, not in a manner consistent with they're just blowing it off, but they're just got a bigger fish to fry than writing us a review. According to Zillow, the best time to ask for a review is just prior to settlement and after all contingencies have been met in an agreement of sale. Because people are relaxed and like, now we got the final leg to settlement. When their mortgages got issues and when you're negotiating home inspections, that's not the right time. But when all contingencies are met and just before settlement, you call and say, hey, Will, listen, we're in great shape. All the contingencies are met, ready to go to closing. So you can breathe a little easier now. By the way, would you mind doing something for me, before we get to settlement? And you send Will, listen, I would love a 5-star review from you. I'll make it really easy for you. I'll send you a text right after we hang up. All you have to do is go to the site, the Google site, and click 5 stars if you'd be so kind and write a couple sentences. That's going to make it really easy for people to give you a review. If you say, I'll email you the link or something like that, not smart. I mean, even better would be a QR code, right? But either or. Clients from last year, okay, it's essentially the same process. You're going to call and watch me, guys. You always say to people when you call them, hey, Will, it's John Gualtieri. But did I catch you at a good time? Right? Because if you caught them at a bad time, it's not cool. Right? It really isn't. You don't go plowing ahead. Hey, Will, it's John Gualtieri. Did I catch you at a good time? Yeah, John, how are you? Well, I'm doing well. Well, I hope you are too. Listen, before I tell you why I called, let's catch up a little bit. How's Mary? How's the dog? Yeah, right? Well, listen, I know you're busy. I've got somewhere I've got something to do in 5 minutes. But the reason I'm calling you is asking for a small favor. I'll send you the link right now if you'd be so kind. It's really that straightforward, but make it easy. Okay. Now, the people that you've served 3 years and prior, it can be problematic if they haven't heard from you since closing. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to expose another shortcoming in your business, isn't it, John?
Yeah. Well, and look, man, I'm just going to tell you all, do believe that there's 3 legs to that stool. The first one is the call, okay? And not everybody's going to answer the phone. And so I personally, will leave a voicemail message and say, hey, Will, it's John Gualtieri, a blast from the past. Listen, if you have 5 minutes, give me a shout. Here's my cell phone number. And that's all. That's all I would leave. And not everybody's going to call you back, okay? But the people who do call you back, you ask for a review and consistent with the way we're going to do the first 2 groups. Hey, how's the refrigerator? You get the idea. And then you say, hey, I'm going to send you the link. So those are the people who respond to your voicemail message. The people who you get live, same MO. The third leg of the stool is the people who don't respond at all. Now you're going to get marginal results from this, but you will get some reviews. And what clients have done is they've sent out a text or an email saying, hey, Will, if you give me 5 minutes of your time, the next couple of cups of coffee are on me, right? And you send them a Starbucks gift certificate. Well, if I remember correctly, there was a time when you were, giving clients gas cards. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I would send like a $10 gas card if I had a contest to get more reviews. You got to be careful though, because Google does not want you giving any like payment or anything for a review. But I usually try.
I agree, but you have to do it under the radar for sure. The best one I saw was, hey, and you personalize it. Use the Reach platform or email. Hey, Will, listen, I know you're really busy, but if you'll just give me 3 minutes of your time, your next car wash is on me. I thought that was a really good one. It was a ticket to a local car wash. So you have to be thoughtful about these groups. But again, circling back, there's no viable reason why you can't start now with your now clients. Okay. I want to just talk a minute about transitioning reviews from Zillow to Google. Because people say to me, look, I've got the person's review on Zillow. I don't want to bug them again. Well, you don't have to bug them. Okay, you really don't. you make it easy. And I do believe that it's a phone call. Hey, Will, it's John Gualtieri. Did I catch you at a good time? Will, listen, before I tell you why I called, how's everything? Right? Well, listen, Will, I know you're busy. I am too. I've got to go in about 5 minutes. But the reason I called you is I want to ask you for a small favor. You guys gave me a really nice review on Zillow, and I'm transitioning my 5-star reviews from Zillow to Google. So what I would love to do, if you're okay with it, is send you the link to my Google page, and I'll send you the review that you put me on Zillow. All you have to do is copy and paste it. Would that work for you? Okay. And at the end of the day, now by the way, guys, if they don't have a Google account, it's game over, right? I mean, there's not much you can do about that. But copy and paste the review they gave you, send them the link. All they have to do is copy and paste it, go to the link, click 5 stars, and paste the review. That's all they have to do, right? Make it easy for them. And then, something that I have to say that I learned from Will, and he alluded to it, is that he answered every single review. If you go on to Google and you look at Will's 5-star reviews, you will see that every one of them, 100% of them, he responded to.
Well, there might be a couple I missed, but the
Well,
vast majority, I go out of my way to reply. And by the way, the reason I do, other than to be authentic, is Google rewards you. They want to see reviews, and they want to see a response from the vendor, and they want to see information posted on your Google profile. Those are the 3 things that make them elevate you to more people.
And one of the things that I will say to you is try to be a little thoughtful when you respond to those reviews. It's nice to say, John and Mary, you were a pleasure to work with, but personalize it a little bit. Say, hey, you bought a great house in a great neighborhood. I can't wait to see what you do with the basement because I know you're thinking about, finishing it. To personalize it a little bit. Don't make it sterile. All right. So the other piece of this is consistency. And I was talking to someone, I guess it was about a month ago, and I asked this individual, what is your biggest challenge right now? What is the one thing, if you get your arms around it, everything is going to get better, not just business wise, but personally. And this person said to me, well, I'm not consistent. That's my big problem. I'm not consistent with things. And I said, well, let me just be a coach here for a minute. Consistency is not the issue. Consistency is an outcome of a bigger issue, right? Lack of consistency is an outcome of a much bigger issue. Well, what's that? It's lack of commitment, right? If we're committed, we'll be consistent. I mean, again, that is not the problem. The problem is commitment to this whole area, and then you'll be consistent. And it's like the person who wants to, get fit, right? They want to get fit. Going to the gym 3 times in a week is great, but if you don't go to the gym for a whole month after that, what's the point, right? There's not a commitment to consistency. And I do believe, and then the most important part of this, by the way, after garnering the reviews is using them. And Will's going to talk about that, at some length. We have to leverage them. Having them is great, okay? But leveraging them is the whole point here. But look, at the end of the day, make the commitment. Like I said, once you get 50 reviews, my observation has been that you're in the game. You're going to start seeing business come in once you're at 50. There's probably not a person on this call that couldn't get 50 reviews within the next 6 to 12 months. Not a single one of you. And some of you, I saw Ken Oliver on the call. I mean, Ken's got well over 100, maybe even more. So then you're really right. One last thing Will alluded to, then Will's going to talk about leverage, is keep your reviews safe, because when they're on these other sites, not just Zillow, but Google, Realtor.com, and so forth, you don't technically own those reviews. They technically own those reviews. It's their site. They're just allowing us to post. The safest place to keep them is on your website. That's the safest place. Okay.
If you go to my group or my website, Penney, pennyrealestate.com or pennygroupexp.com, we've got reviews on there, and I can't remember the name of the company that I use, but it actually keeps the Zillow and the Realtor.com lead reviews on there. Then what I did is when I transitioned over to Google, I had my nephew all he did was go in and copy and paste all of my reviews into an HTML file. And then you can actually use ChatGPT or Claude now to create a platform for you to house those reviews. They won't be live, but you can take those reviews and post them somewhere else if you choose to. I do want to spend a minute on, like, a lot of people get stuck. We're our own ceilings and our own bottleneck. The vast majority of people are. The reason we don't achieve what we would have liked to have achieved, and it goes back to the commitment thing, is because a lot of times we don't have an action step to get started. And it's very easy to say you need to get reviews, but people just kind of freeze on that first step. The first step for me, because I incorporate my reviews into my business, and we're going to talk about this. I stole my own thunder because I got so excited that I jumped the gun and started going over this next bit with you already. The importance of having even a few reviews, because it's not about getting a ton of business from Google. It's about using the reviews as to validate you in a way that you can't do on your own. And when you think about every time you get a call from a buyer lead or a seller inquiry or somebody that you talk to, if you make it part of your process after the call or on the call, say, by the way, when I'm done, I'm going to text you a link to my Google reviews. I'd really, that way you can see that there's actually other people out there that enjoyed working with me. I really am not the type of person to just go bragging on about myself, which isn't actually true. I love talking about myself, but I'm not going to tell them that because it's a killer. So anyway, my first step is, because I let everybody know that a buyer and a seller inquiry, I let them all know that I am dependent on reviews, that I have changed the entire process of fulfillment with my clients and communication with my clients in anticipation of getting a good review. So, because reviews are just the byproduct of an excellent relationship or a crappy one. Right? And by the way, it's easy to get bad reviews. I mean, it's way easy to get bad reviews. Just like it's much easier to get haters. Everyone wants you to do well, but just not better than them. Well, that carries true in everything in our lives. People love being haters. Not everyone, but people love talking about gossip, promoting drama. And there's quite a lot of people that if put in a position where they think that you did a crappy job, they'd love to just go and blast it on social media. Right? So we have to obviously be aware of that. So I tried to change when I made reviews important to me and important for the growth of our team, I knew that I had to change operations, which makes sense because you have to think about where are the places in a transaction where someone is going to get fired up and want to give you a bad review. Well, it's going to boil down to communication, the frequency of communication, the expectations you set, and whether or not you set them too high or not, and whether you exceed them, right? This is basic stuff. So I try to set so many expectations at the beginning of the relationship. When I'm available, how long it takes me to respond to you, how important it is for you to have a good outcome. Everyone that I work with knows that I've got a lot of reviews because I use them to quickly put an escalator in the business instead of a stairway when it comes to trust. So at the beginning of the relationship, I let them know, hey, I've got a bunch of reviews. That puts me on the spot. Because if we're going through this process and I'm not communicating with you at your pace or the way you want me to, or as often as you want me to, or if I'm not doing anything that's not exactly in the flow that you expect from someone of my caliber, would you do me a favor and bring it up? Because I'm just a regular guy with a wife and adult kids, and all I want to do is make you happy and have a good outcome. I'm a very black and white person. That's what I say to people. If things are going along and you feel like there's a struggle somehow, do not ever feel that if you bring that up to me, somehow it's going to be met with rebuttal, because it won't be. It'll be met with glee, because thank you for sharing with me what I'm not doing right, right? So I'm bringing reviews up at the beginning, and I'm going to say to them, by the way, at the end of this relationship or at the end of this transaction, it's not the end of the relationship, it's the beginning of the relationship, the closing. But I say at the end of this transaction, I'm going to ask you to give me a review. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that's a 5-star review. And that's your safety blanket. Because if I do a garbage job, or if I set expectations too high, or if I'm just full of crap and I'm a silver-tongued devil and I don't follow through with what I said I would do, well, then I invite you to drink a couple Bud Lights or a half a bottle of red wine or whatever it is that gets you crazy and go on there and just slam me on Google. That's your ultimate accountability for me. And I actually say that to people at the beginning of the relationship because I'm so confident that I'm going to do everything I possibly can to align with them and do the right thing. So bringing up the fact that you're going to ask for a review at the beginning of the relationship by sharing the reviews that you currently have to validate you with them and earn trust. And then when you meet with them, mentioning, hey, I've got reviews and that's important to me. I'm going to do everything I possibly can in terms of communication and setting expectations. And if I fail or fall short in any way, would you promise me that you'll let me know? Because I'd be devastated if we got to the end and I didn't exceed your expectations. So you have to change your operations before you start asking for reviews, because if you're sloppy, it's going to show it on the reviews. And the last thing you want to do is start asking for reviews and then end up with a 3.5-star review on Google because you didn't think to change your process. Okay? So before the listing appointment, I send the reviews. By the way, back to what John was saying earlier in terms of communication, a couple of great ways to reach out to people now, because a lot of people don't answer the phone. And you can do it on a Droid or on an iPhone. Send a voice memo. You can go into your text and send them a quick 30-second voice memo instead of a voicemail, because a lot of people don't have their voicemail set up anymore, including realtors, which I think is crazy. But consumers, a lot of them don't have their voicemail set up, so you can't even leave a voicemail. And if you send a text, but if you send a voice memo, like a voice message, which you can all do, hey, John, just wanted to send you this quick voice message so you can listen to it. Hopefully you're listening to it now, but I didn't want to just leave you drone on a voice or on a voicemail message, because I don't want to mention the fact they didn't have their voicemail set up. So I just send them a voice message or the video text. Those are great ways for people. They can watch it at their own discretion, at their own convenience. So sending a voice message or a video text is incredibly effective. All right. So again, at the listing appointment, before the buyer interview, when I talk to them on the phone, I'm going to send you the link to my reviews, because it's very important to me operationally that you have a great outcome. I can do my job in my sleep, but I want to make sure you have a great outcome. And I want us to work together as a team to make sure that happens. At the buyer interview, put them on your website. In our marketing with a QR code. I don't do that. Here's what I do. I go into my notes and I have, like it says here, Google and Zillow. Well, I don't ask for Google Zillow reviews anymore, but I call them up. John, hey, I know you're busy. We mentioned before about reviews. If I send you a link, would you be willing to take 5 minutes and give me a review? Yeah, of course I would. All right, great. So then I have this, it says, thank you. Here's a link to my Google profile. Only takes a few minutes to write something up. And then I've got another one. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Reviews are very important in my world. Happy face. It's about the only time that I use emojis. So anyway, I actually save these on my notes. So you can go in here and copy and paste it into a text, but don't ever send a link to your review or for your reviews until you call and have a conversation, because it has to be, think about it from the consumer side. If you call them and you let them know how appreciative you were, it's kind of like when the guy or girl comes over to you at Applebee's and after they've procured all of the service to you and they've cleared the table and they bring you your bill and they say, before they lay it on the thing and with the tip on it, they say, thank you so much for coming in tonight. I hope you had a wonderful evening. It was absolutely my pleasure serving you. They always say that. They give a rat's ass about you. It's so that you then give them a good tip. Well, if you call the people up and you say, hey, I know you're incredibly busy, but if I send you this link, I'm trying to get some more reviews. Would you do that? And you've already talked about reviews before, then it gives you an easy path. Then just copy and paste your Google business link with a little text above it. All right. So that's that. Hopefully this was helpful. I know everyone's got their camera off. Ask some questions. I'm going to open this up now. Wait, Juan typed that during the discussion about negative reviews. Oh, here we go. Okay. Did I miss any of these? What if you just some sort of bot or Juan, explain, is Juan on here? So yes. Can you explain what you meant, Juan? Because I want to open this up for questions for the next 10 minutes.
I think what Juan meant, Will, I don't want to speak for
So
him, but
sorry, I was away for a second. I'm taking care of my baby right now.
I'll
No,
let
no
him.
worries, Juan. Can you explain what you meant by what if it's some sort of bot or spam?
Yeah, so it was in the conversation regarding negative reviews. There's my boy there. Negative reviews. I have a friend who's a business owner, and somewhere in there, he got what he believes is some sort of a spam or a bot or just some disgruntled person who didn't like him, who went on there and just put the most negative but also outlandish reviews that he was just like asked all his employees like, wait, did this actually happen to anyone? Nope. Nobody knew what he was talking about. So after that, he was like, oh, okay, well, I don't even know how to reply to this. Anyway, at that point, I'm just kind of thinking like, hey, if something like that happens, I mean, I don't know if any of you have run across that.
Yeah, I've got
You know,
one.
how do you reply to that? Or
Dude,
do you at all?
Juan, I've
Yes.
got the only negative Google review I have is from someone who said, he stole my identity. Don't use him. I'm like, so I responded saying, at the risk of sounding snotty, we only respond to incoming inquiries, and I'm a real estate agent. I wouldn't know how to steal your identity. I don't know what happened here, but this wasn't me. I mean, I just went in there, and I think I thought about the restaurant owners that go in and they, you know, when someone says their soup was cold or, you know, whatever, you know, when it wasn't, you know, those kind. I just responded to that because I have one on there now. But I did have one. I had another realtor put a like crazy review on there about me, and I actually contacted Google, and they did some investigation, and they removed it.
Okay.
But generally speaking, that is going to be a rarity because, you know, like I had a client last year. She was terrible. This is another mastermind, but you really need to be careful on who you're willing to work with and not just take every commission check, because someone signs up for you with you for 90 days and they can ruin your summer and take away all of your other opportunities. But I had this woman last year. She never gave me a bad review. She just never had because she didn't have she was so unmotivated to do anything, and she was such a complainer that she couldn't even take the time to go on and give me a bad review. But most people won't give you a bad review because as long as you have an open relationship with your clients and you're on a healthy, genuine level with them and you bond with them, then they're not going to just slam you with a bad review. I mean, I still don't know who gave me the one that said I was an arrogant bully. I thought it was Patty Tennant. Patricia Tennant called me like 3 years later. I'm like, hello. She said, hey, Will, it's Patty. How you been? Pretty good. She's like, why do you sound down? She's like, I want to sell my house. I'm like, wait, you didn't give me that review? I was so sure it was her, and it wasn't her. So point is, I don't know who did it to this. And
It was me.
but it was 13 years ago. And I've got the one on there. It's got a response. Like I just apologized and told them I would do better and try to use it to become a better man, you know? So if anyone, because you have to look at the responses, like if another consumer looked at it, they'd be like, wow, he did it. That's not how, I would have been a lot meaner than that, So they like defended, I imagine people would look at that response and defend me more than they would anything else. So the most important thing to do is just start asking for reviews. Start with your current clients, and if you haven't been in touch with your this is a very good gauge. If you haven't been in touch with your past clients and you're thinking, gosh, it's very uncomfortable for me to reach out and ask for a review. I haven't talked to them in 18 months. That is a massive red flag. If this is what it takes to expose that red flag, but if you haven't been in touch with your past clients, what you do is and I talk about this to my coaching clients, create a list of home improvement contractors, home service providers. You call the person up and say, hey, Ed, I know we haven't talked in a long while. They weren't expecting you to. Just wanted to check in. And also, I hope everything's going well with the house. But you were important to me, and I wanted to ask if you've had any contractors at your house lately that you trusted that you would like to add to my list of preferred vendors, because I'm making a list. And I wanted to see if you wanted to add them. So it elevates your status in the conversation, and it takes away the weirdness, the awkwardness, like calling up a girlfriend that you dated but then never showed back up on the second date to the restaurant. You left her sitting there, and then 18 months you call her back. It's different with these past clients. You need to start looking as the closing day as the beginning of the relationship going forward. But for the ones in the past, have a reason to call them. I wanted to reach out to my past clients. I was talking to an insurance agent, and she was telling me that replacement costs is a scam, and that you really need to call your insurance agent and make sure that your replacement cost has been adjusted. Otherwise, if you ever have a claim, God forbid. And I just wanted to take the time to call you. So now you've done something of value for them, and then you use that as the diving board into the next, and then you call them back in 90 days, right? So that's how you revive past clients that you haven't talked to. And then you might, with those old ones, if you haven't been reaching out to those, at the risk of sounding not supportive, you need to stop that immediately, because your past clients are the currency of your business, and you're going to double your business just by firing those relationships back again. But the way you start it up is by offering them something of value, either giving them and telling them to contact their insurance agent. Say, I'm making a list of local microbreweries, wanted to know, or local dog parks. I know you like dogs, whatever. Make a freaking list of something that you can offer to the community and promote it on social media, and use that as your reason to call. Hey, I was in your neighborhood. I know we haven't talked in a while. I've got an appointment in 5 minutes. I just drove 2 streets over from your house. I wanted to call and say, hey, see how you're doing. You can do that, right? They're gonna be like, wow, Will, yeah, I haven't heard from you in a while, but it's so nice to hear from you. And then use that to remind you in your CRM for the next one, but correct that immediately. So everything that we're talking about today, if you can't go back to your past clients because you haven't spoken to them, correct that too. Am I wrong, John?
I would say this: if you guys have any questions at all after we end the call today, just reach out to us. I mean, we'll be happy to talk to you about it. But at the end of the day, what I would say is, in my experience, the most important thing that you could hear today is a commitment. Make a commitment to get this dialed in. Look, I've seen a ton of transactions happen because of it in a very short period of time. I mean, if you reduce it to the ridiculous, if you do 3 or 4 additional transactions a year because of it, is it worth it? I don't know. Do the math.
And your average commission's $8,000. That's life-changing for most real estate agents. If an agent's making $100,000, $120,000, they sell 4 more homes. That's an extra $20,000 to $30,000 a year in income. But more importantly, use the leverage from the reviews think about it as your audience. Like, these are my followers. This is my peanut gallery. And you can take them with you on every appointment. So they all raise their hand and say, yeah, use Ed. Yeah, use Matt. Yeah, use Joanne, without you saying it yourself. You need to have that in your toolkit. Forget about how much business you're going to get from other people. You need to have it to validate you on a listing appointment, before a buyer consult, because it's going to increase trust. It's going to rapidly increase trust. When I talk to people, they call it a parasocial relationship on social media, where people feel like they know you. But if they spend 10 minutes reading reviews, and you get some really good ones in there, because we've all got people that love us, and you get those people to give you a review, you need to use that as validation. It's a tool, just like a sold sign or your car or your cell phone. Having third-party social proof validation is incredibly important. Otherwise, you're working doubly hard. And the minute you start saying, like John was saying, but look, I've got a really nice white Porsche 911, that you must trust me. It's bullshit. Nobody cares about any of that stuff. I've lost more listings by getting in my own head and thinking I'm better than I am. I mean, but getting reviews is going to be another tool you have to shorten the learning curve. That's the most important thing.
By the way, guys, if you want a simple script, let's say you're going out on a listing appointment and say, hey, Todd, listen, really am looking forward to meeting you guys on Thursday night and taking a look at your property. Before then, can I just ask you for a small commitment? What's that? I'm going to send you a link to my 5-star reviews, and I would encourage you to take a look at them, because my clients can tell my story far better than I can. That's a really good script. My clients can tell my story far better than I can.
Or I want to, and you can make a joke out of it. Yeah. The last thing I want to do is start bragging. I'd rather
Just don't-
have you look at and even if you've got 14 reviews, that's 14 other people. You can't don't get in your own head. Don't think about, well, I've only got 116 followers. Have you ever tried to pack 116 people into a room before? You should respect the fact and appreciate the fact that you've got 116 followers. And if you've only got 14 reviews or 17 reviews, well, you want to get as many as you can, but just use those as an opportunity to leverage your new relationships and get reviews from those people. That's the last thing I'll say. It's 12:02. Talk to you guys soon.
Be well.